Welcome back, guys. So, from moving on from where we last left off, we obviously had the swan neck constructed, and what I've done, you'll notice, is I've put in the first lines, hydraulic lines from the manifolds here through to the pistons there. So that accounted for what was on section 2, and obviously accounts for these two lines here. So what I've got now is I've got all the parts taken off that we need to glue on and laid out in the rough areas where they're needed. And we need to look at getting photo etch. So we've got SA3, SA2 and SA1. So there's 3 sets of photo etch to bend. So that basically covers all the lines from down here right up to the hydraulic tank here. So the next job we need to do is lay in these 4 lines. Now, HobbyBoss give you this tube in here to do the line work, and I humbly suggest it's not long enough. What it is actually vinyl tubing with a wire core. But what I've used instead is 0.8mm lead wire, purely because it's moldable, holds its shape, and it works really, really well. But it's also moldable enough for us to then set the angle we need on this adjustable head once the kit is complete. So what I'm going to do is we're going to measure up these 4 lines. So you've got 2 at 58mm and 2 at 60mm, and to go for these either side, there's 2 lines extra. You'll notice here what I've also done is there's a little nub on the joint that's designed to go into the nylon sleeving. I've just cut that off with a scalpel blade so it's a flat surface for the lead to stick to, basically, with a super glue. So you'll see there's, if you can see that there, there's 4 kind of P nubs here, and then there's a nub on each one there. So we're just going to take that off to render that surface as flat as it can be, to give us a good gluing surface for the lead lines. So what I'll do is we'll measure up and cut the 4 lines. I'll get my super glue ready, and then we can come back once I've got it all ready and start gluing in the lines. And once the lines are in, we can then turn our focus to the photo etch. We'll get all the photo etch done, and then we can come down here and start getting these ancillary parts put together and affixed to the swan neck. So back in a moment. Right, so to get the correct length of wire, obviously we need to make a scale. All I've done is get a rule, put an end mark, and then mark down each of the marking lines we need. So we actually need 1 at 55mm, 1 at 58mm, and 2 at 60mm. Right, so I've got a piece of lead wire here that I straightened for the first lot. It was too short, so all I do is hold it up against the end mark and then select which one you want to cut. Cut them maybe just a fraction longer, half a mil. So there's our 60. Don't throw away your bits of scrap wire, because they will come in handy for smaller bits of detail work. So always keep it. The stuff I'm using here is plus models lead wire, 0.8mm. Now when comes out the packet, it's usually a little bit wonky. And all you need to do to straighten it is get your rule, put it down, and then just run it back and forth like so. And that will straighten the wire out perfectly. Usually do it off the paper because you end up leaving marks just with a soft lead. That is our 58. So that's 55, that's 58. And we need 2 at 60, and that's not going to be long enough to do 60. Oh, it is actually, look at that. It's good. So there's 1 at 60. One more, and then that will be that complete. Now I've had this lead wire for a long while, so you buy this stuff. It's not too expensive, but it does last a long while. Although I will need to replenish my stocks because I've used quite a bit to do this piece. So we need another 1 at 60. I think that first one at 60, did I? Yeah, I did. So it's 2 at 60, so we actually need 1 at 55 then. Just that. There we go. Right, now, as I said, what we need to do here is just prep our jointing surfaces up. Just come in with a scalpel, and this is a new blade, so it's very sharp. A nice clean cut, and we just trim off those locating pins for the vinyl wire. Same again here. So just gently push down, and the blade will just slice through that perfectly. So that's left us a nice flat gluing surface. We'll get some super glue on our holder, and I've got my applicator here. It's got a little bit of glue on from the last bit of work, so just get the lighter and burn off the residual glue. Right, what I've also got here is a pair of jeweler's round pointed pliers, and that's what I use to make the turned ends. So you just have to gauge how much you need to do to get around what's already there. Doesn't need to be much, just hold it and bend it around the round, and you get a really nice radius on your line, and you can just test it against what you've got, and that should be pretty good. If you need to alter it, it's easy enough to straighten out. Come in again, just go slightly down the pliers, you get a slightly larger radius, and that will get your hand out of the way so you can see, offer it up against there, and that fits rather nicely. That's the 55, so that goes on that side there. Next thing to do is just dip it in the glue, and then just touch and hold. My super glue is getting a little bit old, so it is taking a moment to go off, as you can see. So what we can do is we can come in and use a proprietary band of accelerator. So this is just Mitre Fast. It is just a super glue accelerator, and just give the plastic area a squirt. You can let it dry off. It will still work as an activator once it's dry. It's just the chemicals are on the plastic. That stuff does not harm plastic, so that's okay. And you just come in, touch and hold, and that will cure off a lot more rapidly, but make sure you get the orientation that you want that end joint to be in the right position before the glue properly hardens off. And that's it. That one joins to here. So if we get we can do is we just need to, I've got one end in, just gently manipulate that lead. It wants to follow the rough track. It sits down on this metal bar that we put in here, comes across, and then it'll turn a very gentle 90 degrees at the top. This can all be done with tweezers. Line it up so you want it roughly in position, so all you have to do is glue and hold. And this is a case where being marginally ambidextrous is handy. So you grip, glue, and then hold. It should go off pretty quick. That's it. And then what we need to do just to secure that joint up is come back in and just wick in a little more super glue around the end of the lead line, just to reinforce the joint we've put in, so when we manipulate the lead line down into its final position, it's not going to break off the joint. And you can do this with your fingers, just gently push. And bearing in mind we've got to put the photo etch in here, so we need to make sure the lead lines don't foul where we're going to go with the photo etch. And that's it. If you want, you can straighten them up a little bit, just with the tweezers, take out any kinks. You know, bring them closer into this lines here, make them a bit more uniform. And what we'll do is when we put the second line in here, then we'll probably put a little drop of super glue, glue them to this bar so they don't move any. Ultimately, you're not going to see them on this side, but you will see them all on the underside. So that's how I've been gluing the lines in. Works pretty well for me. I'll get on off camera, we'll get the rest of these lines in, come back once it's done, and then we can start looking at getting the photo etch bent and put in. So back in a moment. Okay, so we're back, and there we have it. There is the hydraulic lines all done. You can see from the other side what we're going to see once it's painted. But wasn't too bad. Took about 10-15 minutes. But I think it looks quite good, and it probably looks a lot better as what we would have managed with putting in vinyl lines. So next thing to do is back onto the photo etch work, and that is doing SA3, SA2 and SA1. So 3, 2, 1, easy enough to remember. So let's peel off the protective coating. When we look on the rear side, we've got the fold lines marked in. What I propose to do is I'll fold SA3 and 2 off camera, and then we'll come back and we'll fold SA1 on camera. And there's a couple of bits of 6mm brass wire to put in there as well as a spacer, because you see me work with the photo etch for the roof and that, so I don't think you need to see me fold all of it, but I will show you folding the last piece. So I'll get these two pieces in. What we might do though, is might prime them before I put them in. I don't know. We'll see. I'll see how I think we're going to get the paint in when we'll dry fit it all, and then we'll decide whether we're going to glue it in or whether we're going to paint it before we put it in. So I'll start and get these two pieces done, and we'll come back and we'll do the last piece on camera. So back in a moment. Okay, we're back, and I've got these two parts, SA3 and SA2, folded up. So we really just have part SA1 to go. So looking how it goes, there's the top of it. It's got that little notch there. So all we do is put it in the hold and fold. It's exactly the same as how we worked with the photo etch for the cab. So put them in and make sure it is absolutely square with the folding edge. Clamp it down, and then this has got nice square edges here, so we can just tuck that underneath the part and then fold it up around till we get 90 degrees, there and thereabouts. So really nice malleable photo etch brass from HobbyBoss, so quite happy with it. Right, so the next one is we turn it over again, line up the fold line that's etched into the brass, and with our part reorientated, because obviously we can't hold it that way because we've already got that fold in there, so we hold it this way, tuck it under and fold it around. And as you build these folds in, it makes this part more rigid. So we turn it over again, reposition, and these etched fold lines are in actually obviously to make it easier and more accurate folding, but also it gives the interior angle of the metal. So you've got an exterior of the fold and an interior of the fold, and because there's that etched line taken out of the metal, it just allows the interior surfaces to compress a little bit as the exterior surfaces stretch as you fold it around. So it's a bit like a car turning a corner. The inside wheels turn smaller distance than the outside wheels, so it stretches the outside and compresses the inside. So that's why the etched line is in the photo etch, allows that marginal bit of space that's needed to allow for the compression of the material as you bend it. So again, making sure that the part is square in the clamp, clamp it down, reposition if you're not happy. Always make sure you are very happy with how your part is in. And you basically want to get the folding edge on the bottom side of that etched line. There we go. Are we happy with that? I think we are. And you can actually do it without any, because that etched line's in there, you don't actually need that perspexible plastic behind there. It makes it a neater fold, but you can actually just do it by hand because you've got the material clamped firmly. And when you look at the part, the etched lines have disappeared. They're completely closed up. And that's because of the compression element in the fold. So we've done that. We're happy how that is. We can compare it against the line drawing, make any minor adjustments. It will move. Just be gentle because it is very soft malleable metal. You don't want to work or move the joints too much when you folded them. Brass is a non-ferrous metal, and it suffers from a condition called work hardening. So that's basically, the more the material is worked, the harder it gets, the more brittle it gets, and you can actually split the material along the fold lines if you're not careful. So you really just want to fold it once and leave it at that. Now we've got two sections of 6.6mm brass wire to affix to the back of that piece. So I'm going to get my tub that's got all these wire pieces in, and we'll fish out the brass wire, which is here. There's our 0.6mm brass wire. Again, this can be straightened the same way we straightened the lead wire with our steel rule. It's actually copper wire, isn't it? Don't know why they've called it brass, it's copper. But yeah, anyway, we can just Should just be able to get the wire rolled flat. Yeah, there we go. Handily, what we've got here on the instructions, just here, is we have a little scale gauge for cutting our wire. This will cut with the scalpel. If you just roll it back and forth, it doesn't take too many turns before the scalpel blade cuts it. Make sure you put your finger over the piece you're cutting off, because it will have a tendency to shoot off if you're not careful, and then you either spend the rest of the night looking for it, or you have to cut another piece and just resign yourself to it being lost to the carpet monster, or the laminate monster, as in my case, because I've got a laminate floor down in my modelling area. Right, I'm just going to put a drop of fresh super glue in my holding pot. If we look on the back of this part, there are 2 etched lines for that brass or copper wire to go into, so we just take the applicator and run the glue into it. You don't need loads, sometimes less is more, and then we just set that in there. Okay, and that 6mm gauge is far too big. Should have measured it. No. Actually, they do need to stick out. I stand corrected. They're hinge pins. So, it is the correct size. Too much glue, wipe it off and reapply. You don't want to have a really glue clotted surface. So that just, the end of it just goes in that area that has the etched wire, and you're left with these protruding hinges. What we can do to speed it up, a little bit of accelerator, gently blow, let it cure off. There we go, and that is that part there. Now, to hold that part in place, we now need these 2 parts, and I have a feeling that there are holes in there for this brass wire to go in. I have a feeling we'll either have to trim the brass wire or drill through the holes. We'll do a dry fit first to see how it goes. It's not too bad, I don't think. Maybe a little bit large. I think we'll just take the end off them. I think I've just misplaced this one here, so if I just get my scalpel blade and just trim the end, just a mil. That's all it'll need. And we'll try again. Fiddly. Definitely fiddly. Get that piece in there. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm not going to lose pieces here. Drop a glue in there. Right, we'll glue this piece in first. Get the locating pin in. Right, that is that piece in place. And then we'll locate that pin in the recess. Really unstable part. Right. And there. Make sure it's square and in line with the arms. And then we'll pop that pin in there. Like so. There we go. There's the other piece there. So we can come in with that and hook that up. I have to drop glue in there again. a little bit fiddly. There we go. Right, so we need to make sure these parts are parallel and that they're gripping the pins. And the pins, let's see here, if the pins are too long, then we can't get the parts right. So this pin's still too long on this side. So we'll just take another mill off this side. Try again. Luckily with the extra thin we've got plenty of working time. So hold in place and then move this one in place to catch that. There we go. Let's drop more glue on there because it's just only bonding and no more. Press down for that firm fit. And again, look down, straight down on top of it to make sure that the parts run parallel to one another. They are still slightly off, so still need to take just a fraction off this side, unless I've not got it in the hole properly, which also could be the, yeah, there we go, that's maybe the issue. That's it. So we're nice and square now. You want to just push down and be firm, and then that should then allow for this part to hinge, which it does. Excellent. Right, what we need to do now is get this piece on top here, which is SB6. That will then firm this whole part up and this whole structure up, and we'll be good to go. So I'll get this cut out and glued on, and then we can come back and look at getting the rest of these fixings together to complete this stage of the build. Back shortly. Right, so we're back, and as you can see we've got the photo etch now on the top, and we've got all the photo etch stair access way, I presume this is what the plating's for, fitting nicely. So we've got the hinge top piece here, and then we've got the other two pieces here just folded. Had to do a little bit of manipulation to make sure that these pipes cleared the plates, which they do now. I need to reattach one of the hydraulic lines because it's just nipped off. So obviously been a lack of glue there. One out of however many I've done isn't a huge problem. So just pop that back in and that's good. So that is probably the trickiest part of this build done. The next consideration is, can we get this all painted with all the photo etch in place? I'm not sure if we can, so we may have to do, or should I say there's a high probability we're going to have to do a bit of painting before we commit to gluing these parts in permanently. That part goes in there, and that part then fits down, and they all fit really rather nice. So the photo etch itself is absolutely brilliant, and it looks fantastic. However, we've still got other bits to do. We've got this part here, which is Q56. So that goes on the side. What I'll do is I'll just drop those two bits of photo etch off so we don't lose them anywhere. So Q56, just touch and flow with the glue, pre-fill the holes, pop this part in. There we go. It's a good fit. You could, if you wanted to, replace this with wire. I don't think you need to. And then there's Q14, which appear to be wheel chocks. They just sit in there like so. And we can just glue them in place. The chances are they're going to be a rubber compound. So we can paint them black. A bit of hair out of there. We can paint them black after we paint the main vehicle. It's one of these things, it's really neither here nor there. A bit of brush painting, accurate brush painting will be fine. But if you get them in now, then you won't forget them in the build, or God forbid you lose them. So that's those parts in there. We've then got a control unit, I'm assuming, for the hydraulics. So that's part R11, that fits in that keyway there. Again, very good fit, minimal cleanup. So you just need to put a touch of glue there, touch and float. And then we've got part R12 that is a hinged cover for those parts for this. So there's the controls there. There's the hinge at the bottom. So we can have the cover open if we want to, which I think I will. It'll be a bit of interest. So just hold the cover open like that. If you wanted to, you could put the cover on like that for travel mode. But we'll leave it open because we'll be able to do a bit of reference hunting, and we can find what color these controls are. There will be different colors, and we'll be able to paint them up and have a bit of visual interest on the trailer unit. It's nice to have these little details for the observer's eye to catch. Right, next thing to do is we've got these roller fair leads to build up. So that's Q19, and we've got parts N26. This is the right hand one on the instruction. So N26 and N14. So N14 just locks underneath in that recess. So I've got to say, the fit of the parts, HobbyBoss parts, is really rather nice. A little bit of glue and it's solid. And then the second piece just goes over that pin like that, and then that gives you the angle you need. And we can just cement the end in like so, and you can put a drop of cement here just at the join of the roller fair lead. The next thing we've got to do is we've got parts Q54 and Q30, which are the these are the vertical roller fair leads. They are keyed, so they can only fit one way. We can just pop them in, and that's them in, and then just a drop of glue on the base to secure them like so. Good bond there. And then these parts then affix themselves to this part here, and the orientation is when you build them this way on the instruction, the roller fair lead pointing away from you, but when you actually attach them, you turn them through 180 degrees, and then they go on the gooseneck there. So we'll just quickly fire this one together. And it's these little detail parts that, you know, really bring this kit to life. It takes a little time to bring it all together, but it's worth the effort. It really is. and HobbyBoss always seem to manage to make these parts in a parts breakdown that isn't just too difficult to build. You know, there's not 26 parts for the sake of 26 parts. It's minimal parts, or should I say it's as few parts needed to make a detailed overall part, but it doesn't complicate the build for the modeler, if that makes sense. That's why I highly rate HobbyBoss kits. I've built them for years and I really like them. So that part goes in. So this part goes in this way. And it's amazing how quickly from a pile of parts on the paper you end up with a finished subsection. So just glue those in, touch and flow with the Tamiya extra thin, and then 180 degrees, and we can actually get these onto the gooseneck part itself. And the fit again is really rather nice. And when it comes to painting these parts, they'll be ideal candidates for chipping, because they obviously have the design to have the wire recovery ropes traversing through them, leading down to whatever vehicle is being recovered onto the trailer. So the roller fair leads will have their paint chipped off. They will probably have rust staining. Certainly will have probably greasing points for lubrication. So eyeball down the top, make sure everything's parallel again, and we can put a little drop of glue here on the side plate of the roller fair lead. And that, I think, concludes construction of part 3 of this trailer build, and it's a fairly involved build. I think the last episode was about an hour long. I know I can talk a good talk, Phil, but I have been building as efficiently as I can be. But I think this will give anybody looking to do this kit a realistic picture of the amount of time and effort that's going to be involved in bringing these parts together. But that's the gooseneck with the photo etch done. A really nice detailed part that when painted up and weathered, it's going to look fantastic. So let's have a quick look at what we've got coming up next. So coming up next, then, we're carrying on with construction. We've got the airline fittings for the brake system. We've got another chock holding part to go on the opposite side of the gooseneck. We've got these handrails to go on, and fixings here. Not sure what they are. We'll do a bit of research and find out. And then we're actually looking at the trailer spare wheel bracket and the davit for winching the wheels on and off the gooseneck. And then once we've done that, I think, yeah, that completes the gooseneck fitting for the trailer, and we start actually moving on to the chassis and wheel station assemblies for the trailer unit. So it's a lot of work, but we are getting there. So I'll leave the video at this. Any comments, questions, please pop them down in the comment section below. You know, I always take time to read them, and I will get them answered as quickly as I can. As always, if you like the content, please feel free to like and subscribe. It does help build the channel and beat the YouTube algorithm. So until next time, guys, stay safe and happy modeling.